We're live.
Hey guys, I'm Alex. Today, as you can see, my room is a bit different. But anyways, I'm Alex. There's Marco and May.
Hi, and this is
Hi.
my normal Tuesday room, and that's his normal Tuesday room.
Yeah.
I know, Alex. What
Yeah.
happened? I thought housing is
Well,
very difficult in Hong Kong, but you get like the biggest room for yeah for the
yeah,
Yeah,
sessions.
yeah. This is my living
yeah,
room. Actually, it's my dining table. But
your
um,
dining table.
today there's some technical difficulties in the usual room that I'm taking it from. So this one is the only one that's available. And in our office, everybody jokes around calling it the Austin Power Room. So
Power
yeah,
room.
Austin Power.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
yeah, Austin Power.
you can have let me see, what is this? Somehow I can make the screen pop up. Yeah, there you go.
Ah,
Yeah, so
Whoa!
yes,
If I'm having a meeting in that room, I would just be pressing that button like all the time.
yeah, no,
yes.
exactly.
That's
So
awesome. That's
but
awesome.
it's
But
it's working
anyways, yeah,
slowly.
yeah, it's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Hey
last
Okay.
May, you
time we
want to
talked
say
about
something?
last time we talked about the real estate, China, Hong Kong starting up, and then we talked about how real estate got scarce, and then this is the biggest room I've ever seen, and yeah, so that's funny. But anyway, moving forward, last time we talked about Hong Kong open up, we talked about China a little bit, and then everything, all the assets went up, risk assets went up, stocks, cryptocurrencies, a lot of things went up, and it's like really interesting just by the fact that people think that China is opening up, how it drives, just a thought of people, how it drives all the assets. So, and Hong Kong is like the porch to China. But anyway, I just want to hear more about China. And I've heard that Marco and Alex, especially Alex, has direct experience in Shanghai, and both of you understand China quite well. And I want to dig into like, yes, people have hypes, people believe that China is opening up, people are going to spend money, but realistically, how does it look like? How does it feel like interacting, working, living in China? And Shanghai is one of the biggest cities and drivers, economy drivers of China. So I think it's interesting to see what we're expecting, what we expect, speculating,
Hmm.
and what is the reality. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So no, that's great. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about Hong Kong and China. I think it's time to talk about Shanghai. Shanghai is the biggest city in China. Uh, I think the current population is 24 millions. 24
24
millions.
Mm,
million.
Yeah, that's what
wow.
is said on the Wikipedia. 24.9 millions, as a matter of fact, in 2021.
Yeah.
So it is the biggest city in China. It's bigger than a lot of countries' populations, um, and it's the single most important engine for the China economy. Yeah, I personally was kind of stationed in between Beijing and Shanghai for a while, but Alex he actually spent all of his time 8 years in China in Shanghai. So
Yeah.
I think Alex has a lot of funny and interesting story about living in Shanghai. But Alex, why did you move to Shanghai to begin with?
I moved to Shanghai actually. That was the start of my stint with my family company, CP Group, right? So I was originally working as an architect in Hong Kong, and somehow, long story short, I was pulled into my family business in Shanghai, and at that time it was a great opportunity, and I think it still is. At that time, I remember watching a National Geographic, and we're talking about even the port in Shanghai is 13 times bigger than the port in Hong Kong. So at that
Mm,
time, the sentiment was that Shanghai is going to replace Hong Kong, this and that, whatever. But I thought that it would be, I would be doing myself a disservice if I come to um, want to partake in the China's growth and expansion without actually being in China. Because in Hong Kong, you could just, even though it's great to access China, but you have to go really dig in. And so yeah, that's why I moved there. and I lived there for 8 years before moving back to Hong Kong. And
Okay.
I remember the first time, being there, and my first impression is just that Hong Kong, you could feel the population here because of the population density in the streets. It's just so incredibly crowded. But in China, in Shanghai, it's a completely different scale, because as Marco has stated, it's 24 to 25 million people in Shanghai. Of course, Shanghai also I think it acts as a province too, right? So not everybody is squeezed into the city. There's still kind of satellite, like, more the outlying areas. So it includes that. But still, Shanghai, it is very, very, very populous. And when I was there, it's not per square inch is not as crowded as Hong Kong, but you can feel the immense scale. Like, just everything is bigger, and you see people moving around like it's like a rock concert every day on the street because it's so incredibly big. In terms of modernity, I would say Shanghai is very much up there, at least the hardware, right? So people are talking about the hardware, the city itself. As you all know, like 2008, the World Expo was hosted in Shanghai, and because of that, there's a big push to really construct and build on there. So I went there just at the right time. That was when I first landed there, and it was absolutely like, it's incredible, because many people, when they think about Hong Kong, when they think about China, they think about, foreigners a lot of times think that once they get off the plane, you see people running around with rickshaws, like, pulling people around, and they have that like Susie Wong image. But once you get there, like, oh my God, it's actually very, very modern. In fact, Spike Jonze made a movie called Her. I don't know if you guys heard about that movie.
Yeah,
the movie is set in near future Los Angeles, but actually half of it is actually filmed in Shanghai.
Wow.
So, in fact, it's like right outside of where I work in Lujiazui area, most of it. So you can just imagine, actually, the city itself looks modern enough for major filmmakers to actually set it in as a stand-in, like for a near future Los Angeles. So you can imagine how modern that looks. Anyway, this is some of the more like on surface level what I know is about Shanghai. But yeah, I mean, what else do you guys want to talk about? Need to know? Like, I'll be very honest with you guys. So
thank you.
Yeah.
That's what we need, something juicy. But before we get there, I just want to know why Shanghai is so rich. What does it do? I know. I mean, okay, what do you do there? I know that it's your family business, and obviously it's going to make a lot of money. Otherwise, you wouldn't move to China. And why Shanghai is rich? I mean, biggest port, but anything else that makes it rich?
Yeah, let me just jump in for like 2 minutes here to explain the historical background of Shanghai. Why is it so important? So before, for a very long history, the eastern coastline of China is the richest part of China. The weather is good, the farming is good. So a lot of the cultural developments for today's Chinese culture is actually originated from Shanghai too. But also at the same time, because Shanghai or the Shanghai area is at the coastline, and it's actually right at the tip of the Changjiang River. It actually it's like a biggest port in China for the longest time. That actually receive a lot of like foreign culture influence too. So the Shanghai sort of local culture is very custom for doing business, trading, and so during the 80s when China opens up, and the 90s and then 2000, that area really thrived and developed, and a lot of the inland people who was looking for better opportunities, they all moved to Shanghai, and yeah, so that's why Shanghai developed this kind of culture and traditions to do business, trading, and it just keep going as China economy continue to develop. So there are trading, there's like banking. Shanghai is a cluster of banking, and trading in Shanghai.
Yeah.
You know,
And also
sorry.
just to kind of fill in on that too, a lot of people, it's very common knowledge that a lot of people think of Beijing as the government seat and also the overall Chinese culture. It's preserved in Beijing. So a lot of the arts, like opera and everything, is in Beijing, whereas in Shanghai, they think of it more as a commercial city. So that's the distinction that a lot of Chinese people make about Shanghai versus
Yeah.
Beijing. Both are immensely huge cities, but just culturally, just people are just very different there.
Yeah.
Because this is what I've heard. Shanghai was bred differently. Government pours certain lot of money in Shanghai itself to develop the cities. Also, people invested a lot, and it's almost like there's a China and there's a Shanghai that has the mind of its own and kind of different from average China. And I think Alex can help me with the insights on behavior, like people, how people look at the West, how people look at the business, and how they behavior, schooling, raising family. Just want to hear certain aspects of how they are compare Shanghai people to Chinese people. And what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get here is a driver to what kind of behavior to drive Shanghai forward.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, Marco, but I think a lot of people, the tradition, the reputation that Shanghai people have is that they're very commercial. Like, they're there to do business. Like, and they're very practical people in terms of like doing business and stuff. Whereas in Beijing, because it's especially in the north where it's cold and everything. Somehow people are like, you always hear of the the temperament of the Beijing people is a lot more like a lot more how do you say it? A lot more rugged and a lot more like straightforward and stuff. Shanghainese people are a little bit more like they're able to they're able to it's just different. Like they're more, I wouldn't say politically correct, especially in a different sense, right? But they're a little bit more how do you say it? Like they're able to they're better at they're more prone to do business, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like and Shanghainese culture also bled into Hong Kong too, because in the 60s, a lot of the Shanghainese immigrants come to Hong Kong, and a lot of actually Hong Kong culture, such as mahjong and all the other things, came from Shanghai. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah. I
Chinese people
think
are very,
yeah.
go ahead.
I think I would add to this that a very overall, like, oversimplified kind of explanations about these different regions. People will always say like Beijing is a capital city. That's actually like the cultural center of China, vastly because it has been capital of China since Qing Dynasty and the end of Ming Dynasty. So you can imagine for the last 600 years, China Beijing has been China's capital, except for a very brief time in Nanjing, but then majority of the time is Beijing. So Beijing kind of have this, capital, China culture, cultural arts kind of center or political center. Whereas in Shanghai, it's a port. People do a lot of business, so a lot of banking business went to Shanghai. Whereas in Guangdong, the weather is good, and there's a lot of factories there. And then these factories cluster in Guangdong, and that's why we have today Shenzhen, which is actually the technology hub of China. Because people who go there to start a tech company, they can often find like different partnerships within 10 kilometers radius. So it really enhance the technology advancement. So I would kind of oversimplify the summary that Shenzhen, Guangdong, it's like the tech hub. Shanghai is the financial hub, whereas Beijing is the cultural hub.
Okay, I'd like to turn this a little bit into interviewing Alex a little bit. So I just want to know, what exactly did you do in Shanghai? And
I
how does it feel like? How did it feel like?
I was working in my family's business, and at that time, because I was an architect, I naturally landed on the job as the head of design and construction in one of the properties, which is the Lotus supermarket over there, supermarket chain. And also, I was also acting as a consultant to Superbrand Mall, because at that time, Superbrand Mall, actually, our family helped develop the Lujiazui area when it was just originally farmland. And at that time, it was the mayor of Shanghai, under the instruction of Deng Xiaoping, actually sought out my uncle to see whether or not he's interested in helping us develop. Because at that time, it was like 97, and there's a Singaporean company that originally was supposed to help develop that area. They bailed out because of the financial crisis, but then Deng Xiaoping goes, "Hey, why don't you find Dining Chair and on?" And then my uncle flew there and looked at the land, and right then and there signed to help develop that area. And we're very fortunate enough to participate in that project right now. We helped them do the master plan and helped plan out who would go in there. So IFC, the Shangri-La, in Lujiazui, actually, that land was originally given to us, but then we parceled it out to them at a good price so that they could help develop this land. But we kept this place called Superbrand Mall, which happens to be a big landmark right now in Shanghai. So at that time, it was built I think it opened in 2003. And then when I was there, 2008, they already started to want to renovate that area, because things just move so fast in Shanghai. Originally, when we were there, Lotus Hypermarket, when I say hypermarket, it's like Walmart, right? And in fact, we were partnering up with Walmart to bring Walmart into China, but then for some reason that I wasn't involved, they actually then split, and they signed an agreement that Walmart will remain in Shenzhen in the south area, while Lotus could actually develop in the rest of China at that time. So at that time, when we first opened Lotus, it was unheard of. It was like basically like a very much a shopping center for the community throughout Shanghai, and it did really well. But then it just developed so fast, and within 10 years, like the hypermarket model almost become obsolete. So it's just like things just move so incredibly fast in Shanghai, and yeah, and Shanghai it's almost like it's great because it's very accepting of new ideas. So in the beginning, a lot of times people had a lot of success by foreigners coming into Shanghai and basically bringing concepts that were well and tested in outside of Shanghai, and then they just bring it in there, like they would open up cafes, bars, or whatever, and then it would do really well in Shanghai, and that was how a lot of people became like very successful there. Right now, I mean, it's starting to, now that it becomes in Shanghai, going there, you notice that a lot of time as a foreigner, you notice that there's a lot of almost a Chinese version of a lot of the nice cafes and restaurants and stuff. So Shanghai is like living in Shanghai is very much a very first world experience.
Yeah, but Alex, I think you should share your experience about renovating your house in Shanghai versus renovating your house in everywhere else in the world. I know you can.
I mean I'm not going to be all positive about it. I mean, going into China, I mean, it's everybody calls it the Wild West, and it still is, in a sense that not as wild as before. Right now, a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the rules starting to solidify, right, to crystallize. But I mean, in order to come to China, you got to think that it's not a lot of the system. It's not perfect. A lot of the rules are still being there's still a lot of loopholes and stuff. But then what happened is it's in the imperfection, there's also the opportunities, right? So for example, but I don't know if that's the best example to make, but then renovating my house, a lot of times, um, the workers are very eager to give you what you want, but I'm very specific about certain things, how the design should be. And sometimes I actually have to teach the workers how like, what I want and how to make it. And you can't take anything for granted. I drew a door, and a door frame, it's a regular door frame with a 90-degree mitered angle, like, but then they come in with, I don't know, it's just like, they come up with completely not what I wanted. I thought it was like a door frame is a door frame. But then even with that, you have to kind of be like, okay, this is not what I want. And so I have to be very specific about certain things. But there's also the reward. As I said, a lot of people come in with new businesses, and the people in China are very adaptive. So they'll learn fast. And a lot of times, what you notice now is that times are very different, because before everything is all new to them, but now they're used to it. And a lot of the richer Chinese people send their kids abroad, and then they come back. So you have these new generation of people who are very sophisticated, in the sense that they know culture from both the West and China, and they have the connections, and then they know how to navigate China. So what happened is there's a whole new breed of people that comes in here. When I first came back, I know how to speak Chinese, but I could hardly read, and I could even write even less. But I could survive there because, at that time they needed, like, people from the outside to kind of give them new ideas. But now, under the same situation, I won't be able to compete, because there's a whole new breed of kids who actually are even more sensitive to how people communicate in China and the culture there. So, and more in tune with the culture. So things move in China very, very fast, and that's only like 10 years difference, right? So it's just a fast moving train.
Yeah. When you talk about fast, I was thinking about the last episode. You said you were in New York, it was fast. And then now you moved to Hong Kong. New York is chill and compare. Can you compare you've been through a lot of cultures, in New York, in Hong Kong, and in China. And you kept saying the word fast, high-speed train, and these words. Can you compare these three cities?
Well, well, let's just put it this way. China is like, it's like trying to take on everything at once in China is like trying to drink from a fire hose. You drink directly from a fire hose. I mean, you can just imagine the image of it, right? It's over the years, I noticed this is that in China, you have to do things fast. You prioritize speed over perfection. Whereas being a very anal retentive architect, I always want everything to be 100% before executing. In China, you can't afford to do that, because if you wait too long, other people are going to start doing it already. So, for example, when I was doing my supermarket, there are some initiatives to add some innovations and stuff. And if you plan for too long, your competitors have already done it, So what you want to do is you prioritize speed and aggression, and what you put out might not be perfect. It might be 50% of what you want, but then you just repeat. You try to innovate and refine every step of the way. Every time you do it again, so you get 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, like that. That's how you work in China. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to plan until it's like 90%, 100%. That's not going to happen. So, whereas in New York and Hong Kong, you could actually not take your time, but you actually have the luxury of kind of wanting to perfect it and refine it. So it's very different style of working in China. In China also, it's, sometimes, I'm running a construction department, and the great thing is that my staff are very, very hungry. And they're always out there to want to do a good job. But then they haven't been exposed to this stuff. They haven't, like, what I want, like, in terms of design, sometimes I have to fly them abroad for them to be like, oh, actually, this is how you want it. This is how you look like. But still, there's still some process of grasping it, right? So you have to really sit there and guide them. But again, like, no, speed and aggression over perfection. Like, no, do it once, do it twice, and you keep on doing it until it gets to the point that you actually like it.
Okay, so measure twice, cut once is not a concept that you see here in Shanghai.
Yeah, it's you just have to.
You just cut.
You have to roll with it and just kind of like, just work with it. But it's a very different style of working. So I mean, I appreciate both. I appreciate both because now I learned that, getting things done is not just about perfection and about planning. Sometimes you plan it a certain way, but you gotta leave space for some mistakes there. When you design, not only in terms of physical design, but when you design policy and everything, you gotta do things that you gotta consider something that's more simple. Sometimes you can't do everything you want because the first time around, you would think that if you get very complex about things, sometimes people just don't get it. And then you have to kind of just think of ways to actually do something that's hard to make a mistake of. And then only when you could get that level done can you then consider, okay, in this area, let's do it this way instead. And then slowly but surely, through repetition, be able to improve.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting because when you think about financial hub of the world, Shanghai is one of them. And then you when you hear this, like, they're trying to measure speed over perfection, and then that's why they churn out money super quickly. That's one thing. And that's why I think the fact that a lot of people fear that China might not done things perfectly when it comes to terms and due diligence on the financial things creates certain worries to certain people. But boy, oh boy, they did make a lot of money, and enough in the way that people think that they're gonna change the world somehow. And in terms of money wise, because I've been looking at the data and I'm looking at the graphs and looking at all the assets that's looking up because China is opening up. How, I mean, I want to phrase this right, but I don't know if I get this right. But I just trying to figure out why Shanghai is so rich. I think there's just like business mindset because they're traders, because they measure their value speed over time. But compared to the rest of China, do they have the same style of mindset? Maybe not to the degree that Shanghai people have, but do you think they're from the same lot? Do you think they're similar, Chinese people to the Shanghai people?
I mean, China is a big country, so of course culturally there's going to be a lot various differences. But I don't know. I mean, I cannot pinpoint, what about Shanghai that makes it so different from the other Chinese city, other than the fact that, as Marco has pointed out, there's some history and natural resources there that carries on to modern day over here. Shanghai is already kind of, the infrastructure is there from the beginning, before the world wars already. There has already been foreign influences there, so there's still some leftovers from there. If you go to Bund, some of the buildings, during our unfortunate colonial times when all the countries took over us, they still left some of that, beautiful buildings there. For them, it's beautiful. For me, it reminds me of our colonial past. So, but I don't think that there's, Marco, please chime in, because for me, I couldn't really pinpoint, Shanghai, it's rich because of a certain type of thinking, except for the fact that it's already there and the government just go, hey, nowadays, a lot of times, these type of what each role each city make has a lot to do with what the central government designate that place as, right? But there's some, of course, some natural things where, of course, Beijing has been the seat of the government for a long time. So without any good reasons, of course, it's going to still remain there. Shanghai being the commerce area before, now, like, it's natural that, Shanghai would pick it up again. But then, yeah, I mean, but then the rest is all up to what the government designate that place as. So I don't think there's really any natural reason why, like, no, Shanghai people are I wouldn't say they're more intelligent or something like that. I think everybody in China agree. But one thing about Shanghai is how it attracts that attention is that it's just like Harvard, right? Harvard itself, you can't say Harvard is great because it has, more facilities, more swimming pools, more laboratories. Of course, like, no, there's certain advantages over there, but the advantage is the people that it attracts. So let's just say I'm someone who's from like a second, third tier city, but I'm a person from there, but I'm very hungry to develop. So naturally, you're gonna move towards, hey, the bigger cities like Shanghai and Beijing, and that's why it's already there. So it naturally start to attract those type of people too.
Interesting. I still want to hear more about, actually I want to dig in. Normally I'm not that interested in China. I just think of China as an economy driver. But as you talk about this, start to get more interesting, and we might stay on this topic next week. Let's see how things progress, because I think this year, 2023, you're going to see a lot of things happening, a lot of volatility and fluctuations in a lot of countries and a lot of markets, and people will try to find reasons to explain the situations. And so let's see. I think China is going to drive a few events within the first quarter. So
yeah, and I think it's an apt moment to do so too. I don't know whether I missed the last show. I'm sorry, but maybe you guys have already touched on what Marcos has theorized before, in when the economic stimulus is kicking in. Have you guys touched on that or last time, Marco?
Yeah, like I said in many shows, that I think when the export of China is dipping, China it's going to exert or apply its stimulus to the economy, so the internal economies will be stimulate and
find the chronic in your Apple Music library.
my Siri is stupid. Anyway, so yeah, so I think this is happening now. We see in November, December, 2 months in a row, China export drops 2 digits in percentage, and then same thing happening in Japan and Korea. So it's not just a China problem. So I think the economy is now, and the West is kind of it's having its effect right now. It's ordering less, and then it's affecting the export in Asia, and I think China is gonna start like kicking in its internal economy.
And you were saying that it's no accident that China has chosen this time to then all of a sudden open up this border, despite the fact that it's dealing with COVID, but now it's decided to just kick it open, right?
Yeah. So I think I'm not, by all means, I'm not the policymaker, but I think the strategy here is to opens up the public, the economy, opens up China to the world, and get the COVID under control within 2 to 3 months or 3 to 4 months, and then that will be like carry us to March, like April, February, March, and that's when you will see a lot of the government policy kicking in.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah. So if you want to buy China stock, or if you want to buy the stock market in Shanghai, it's the right time to do it now.
Okay.
We will see. We'll see if I'm right.
Excellent. So I gotta be aware of the time. We're running a bit later than usual, but yeah, I think today. I'm sorry, I was doing mostly the speaking, but yeah, as May says, like, we're gonna keep following up future shows with similar subjects too. So Yeah, thank you so much. I think we're gonna log off now. So, I'm
Yeah.
Alex.
And May?
Marco. But before we go, May, what is that thing in your ears? Are they earrings or headphones?
Yeah, it's just like I just got it from the disabled kids, like the special needs kids, and there's like the booth and they sell things and everything there is unusual, but
Wow,
yeah, this is the earring that I've got from them.
that
So
is awesome. Awesome.
thank you. It's a statement earring.
Wow, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna end the show right now. Sorry about the delay.
No
Okay.
worries.
Talk to you guys
Okay.
soon. Okay.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.